Hello, and welcome to Biker Bushcraft. In my previous videos, I've talked a lot about gear. I've shown you my full kit. I've shown you some of the changes that I make according to the type of camping I'm doing. But I'm sure a lot of you are saying, well, I don't want to spend all that money. And I've even had a couple of people ask me questions about what should I buy. I want to go motorcycle camping, but I don't want to spend a lot of money. I only am going to do this once or twice a year. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So, the first thing is shelter. Now, you're not going to want to go out and spend a whole bunch of money on an oilcloth tarp. They can range upward beyond $100 for one that's a good size. Myself, I would look at nothing smaller than 8 by 12. I prefer rectangular tarps over square. But again, if you're just starting out in this, you're probably not going to want to go buy an expensive tarp. Now, you could go to the local hardware store. You might even have in your garage already a poly tarp, and they work. They're adequate. They've got eyelets in them. I don't personally like them because you're sleeping in plastic and it has some of the same problems as a tent. To me, I don't like the sound of it. I don't like the feel of it. So myself, I go to the hardware store and I get a canvas drop cloth. Very inexpensive. This is a $20 cloth. It's 9 by 12. Plenty big enough to do what I want to do. And it'll give me a fantastic structure. It's a $20 investment. They have a deal going at the local place right now where you get this and a 5 by 7 drop cloth together for about $25. But I already have a ground cloth, so I didn't spend the extra few dollars. So this is really a good deal. Now, with a drop cloth, obviously you don't have eyelets, so you're going to have to make your own tie-out points. In order to do that, I have another item, these glass beads. Now, I got these at the dollar store for next to nothing, and they work fantastic for my purpose. You take a bead and take a piece of cordage and tie a loop, and I've got a Canadian jam knot on here. Then you take wherever you want your tie-out to be, you put that glass bead in there and put your slip knot side. You can use a slip knot, Canadian jam knot, whatever you want to use. Something that holds, something that when you pull it tight will stay tight. And there you go. Now you have a tie-out on the tarp. Now I am going to set these up about every 2 feet around this tarp and one near the center, but I'll go over that later and show you the setup that I use and why I use it, why I do it the way I do it. Now, beyond your initial structure, you're going to want a blanket. Now, if you don't have a wool blanket, you don't need to go buy a wool blanket. Any blanket will do. Just grab a blanket and put it with your kit. So now, you've got about a $20 investment in a blanket from the house. I've got my ground cloth. You've seen it in my previous videos. And so again, I didn't buy the 5 by 7. These are almost free at the hardware store. If you buy one, it's going to be under 10 bucks by itself, or in the kit, it's, under $5. So a ground cloth is worth having. Bungee cords. Everybody that's got a motorcycle has bungee cords. I'm sure of it. Gloves. Now, I use these, the calfskin gloves, for my riding gloves. I also use them when I'm handling wood, for just about everything. So I've got one set of gloves that I bring with me. In the winter, I have 2 sets because I've got winter riding gloves. You don't, but you can pick up a pair of gardening gloves. It is a good idea, though, to have some gloves that you can use when you're tending the fire, processing wood, and that sort of thing. First aid kit. Another item you shouldn't have to buy because you should always have a first aid kit on your bike. I've always carried one. I've had occasion to need one. This one I picked up at Walmart. It's got all the basic stuff in it, nothing spectacular, but I did add some gauze and some tape to it. So that, in theory, you shouldn't have to buy. Cordage. Now, I like the paracord, and this stuff I get at the local hardware store for about 10 bucks for 100 feet. It's 550 cordage. It's perfectly adequate for what I'm doing. So again, you're $5–10. I like to carry 100 feet with me, so there's $10. I also, for my Tieouts, got this natural fiber cordage, just to play with it. The paracord was fine, but I figured for $3 more I'd get this stuff and play with it. Now, this, for processing firewood, you need a saw. This folding saw is really inexpensive. I don't even know what brand it is, but it works. It's not the sharpest thing in the world, but it'll cut through a 2 or 3 inch branch and cut that into pieces that I can process for fire. And that's all I really need. I would recommend, if you don't have something like this, to go ahead and spend the money to get it. It's not very expensive. You can get them at the local hardware store cheap. One like this, it's not going to last forever, and again, it's not all that sharp, but it'll suffice. The most important thing to look for, though, is the lock. Make sure it locks when it's closed and it locks when it's open. And the reason for this is you don't want your saw coming open in your saddlebag and tearing up your gear, and it will. I always bring a burlap bag. Said it before, my basmati rice bags. If you get rice at home, well, you already have the bags. If not, you can probably find something else that'll work for a food bag. I like these though, and I have them, so it didn't cost me anything. I didn't have to buy anything extra. Ziplocs. I'm sure everybody has freezer bags. Coffee filters. If you're a coffee drinker, get the filters. I have filters, but not a drip through, and I'm going to show you later how I use them and how I work. So you can go to the grocery store and spend $2 on some coffee filters and not have to buy a whole new system if you're used to using an electric coffee pot at home. Shovel. So you need a shovel. This one is a little folding shovel I bought, I don't know how long ago, and it was cheap. It was $16, something like that. It works. It's adequate. You need a shovel for tending your fire. That's really important. You also need it for dealing with waste. So you do need to bring a shovel. If you don't have a camp shovel of any kind, bring a garden trowel. It'll work fine. You just need something that you can dig holes and throw some dirt around. Plastic baggie with some sugar and some salt and pepper in it. The sugar and salt and pepper packets aren't very expensive. You can get them at your local grocery store. And again, you buy a little box of picnic salt and pepper packets, cost you a couple of dollars, and that's usually what you need. If you want anything more than that in the way of spices, put your personal special spices together. Put them in a Ziploc and throw them in here with the other spices. Make sure that you take a permanent marker and write what it is on there if you've got more than one, so that you can remember, because you may not be able to recognize which one's which. My cast iron frying pan. Most people have a frying pan at home, so didn't have to buy anything special there. It's just whatever frying pan. I like cast iron. I recommend cast iron. But if you have stainless or you have copper or whatever you have, just grab the smallest frying pan you have. You don't need some monster. You're not cooking typically for a group. You're cooking for yourself. Now this is I'm using it rather than what just anybody would have at home. You can bring any saucepan. The most important thing, you need a pot, and you need a pot with a lid so that you can boil water, so that you can cook vegetables, things like that, so you can make tea, so you can make coffee. It's important to have a pot. Now, any small saucepan will work. You can pack it with your fry pan. Because I have this and it fits my kit, I'm going to use this one. But if you didn't have it, and I'll also say that you can go to Wally World or any of these other big box type stores, and you can buy the little camp kitchen sets that have a fry pan and a saucepan in them and a fork and a spoon. They're inexpensive. They're under $10. You can buy one of those, and if it lasts you one trip, at least you'll get a feel for what you want. So that's an option. But I'm all for using what you have in the house. So you don't have to buy anything. Don't spend any money. Coffee cup. Now, most people that drink coffee have a travel cup. I know this. So bring your travel cup. I bring mine. I use this at home. I use it camping. I use it everywhere. I love this cup. But any travel cup will work. It's good to have an insulated one. Now, I've got my coffee in here as well. The nice thing about this setup, and the reason that I'm bringing this time, coffee fits in here. This fits in my pot. And I've got a lid. So I've got everything I need in one spot. That's just my choice for ease of packing. I've got my spork, but you can bring just a regular fork and spoon from home. That works fine. And spend the $3, get the can opener. I highly recommend it. It's well worth it. So that's something worth buying. You'll use it. And then of course I've got my wipes. You've seen those before. My off. I keep this stuff around anyway. Keep it in my car. Same with the wipe brush. You know, all the personal stuff. My journal. So all of these things are what I typically have around. What I had to purchase, 2 drop cloths. And maybe a shovel if I had nothing around, although most people have something. I always have coffee filters. I always have the travel cup. I would have had to purchase my little marbles and some cordage. So here we are at the campsite, and you'll notice I'm on the bagger today. I'm going to go ahead and set everything up. I did take some time in advance and go ahead and put the tie-outs on the drop cloth, so that should speed things up. But the first thing I'm going to have to do is find a little bit of wood. I need a pole for my tarp structure, and I need some stakes. Okay, we've got some decent wood over here. This is going to work well for the tent stake. I've already knocked most of the branches off, and now the saw comes in handy. So, like I said, I've knocked some of the branches off this. I left a Y in it, and you'll see shortly why that comes in handy. And as a tent pole, I want to make sure that I've got this as clean as I can. 1 or 2 places to hook things is good, but I don't want a bunch of things that I'm going to run into sticking out. I want to use this one. I'm going to hang my headlight up here. I've got another one here just in case that's too high. All right, so we have our tent pole. Now I also need to make some stakes. Yeah, a few stakes out of that one. And 1 or 2 out of that one. That should be enough. If I need more, I'll come back. Okay, I've got most of my stakes carved down. Got one last one here. I'm going to carve a point in all of these so that I can shove them into the ground. The ground here is fairly hard, so I'm definitely going to need a point. These are short stakes. Could have gone longer, but I think they're going to be sufficient for the tarp and the tie-outs that I have. There is a little bit of wind. Supposed to be some wind tonight, so we'll see what happens. Now the other thing that I'm doing is all of my shavings I'm putting in a nice neat little pile to use for tinder. Okay, so the next step in this process is I need another tool. I need a baton. So I cut this piece of wood off. I'm pretty happy with it size-wise. So the first step is going to make a handle. So you cut into the wood. You cut a, I think to make the right size in this one, I'm going to go about 3/4 of an inch. And you saw it all the way around. And try and get it straight so it lines up. Oops. I'm sure a lot of you already know this, but just one little tip. When you're sawing, especially with a light-duty folding saw like this, don't put any downward pressure on it. Just let the saw cut. Just go ahead and run it through, back and forth. Your only pressure should be forward and back, not down. So this looks pretty good. I think that's going to work. Now, the challenge that I have is, since this is my baton, what I'm going to have to do is find another stick to use as a temporary baton. It may not be as comfortable, but so that I can finish making my baton. So let's see what I can find. So I found something to use as a temporary baton. It's kind of ugly, but I think it'll work. So if you haven't batoned wood before, it's pretty simple. Basically what you're doing is you're splitting wood with your knife. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line my knife up about 3/4 of an inch down, and I'm going to use the baton to split it down to where my cut is. Then I'm going to do the same thing all the way around. Got a bit of a knot to work on here, so let's see if I can't encourage that knot to go away. That's better. So you can already see this is getting down to a more manageable size than this. That's not bad. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time making this perfect because I'm only out here for one night. I'm basically going to use it to pound in some tent stakes and process a little firewood. So I'm just not going to spend that much time making this perfectly comfortable. But you get the idea. Makes for a nice comfortable tool. Okay, got our tarp here. You can see, as I said, I've got the tie-outs already set up. Additional stuff for tie-outs because there's a good chance I lost some. All my tent stakes are there. Little vegetation. Okay, so before I stake this down, credit where credit's due, this specific tent configuration or tarp configuration that I'm going to use, I got by watching one of Dave Canterbury's videos. Dave Canterbury from the Pathfinder School, very knowledgeable. I've picked up a lot of things from him that I'd never tried before, and this configuration is one of them. So I'm going to grab a couple of stakes. I've got some specific stakes for specific purposes. This is going to go at the front of the tent. This is going to go at the front of the tent. And these two heavier ones I want in the back corner, and this in the middle. And grab those, grab my baton, let's start building this thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stake out the center back and then I'm going to come in one tie out in from the corner. And I'm pulling this at a little bit of an angle. It'll kind of keep some tension crossways on this when I'm done. And the third stake back here, again, is one in from the corner. A little bit of an angle, not too much. I've got tension across here, but obviously I can't really pull any tension front to back. Now, if I really wanted to get fancy with these stakes, I would have notched them for the rope, but I don't think it's going anywhere. So the next two stakes I'm going to put in are going to be these two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the corner, and this is a cool trick. I'm going to line it up with that stake that I put in back there. So I'm going to pull the corner in towards the center in the front. I want a nice 90-degree angle at the back of the tarp. Then I'm going to go to the other side here. I'm going to do the same thing. Bring this up so it's got a nice 90-degree angle at the back of the tarp. So now, ready for my tent stake. And I'm going to be guying this in. In order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and use more of this natural fiber cordage that I've got. It's not that strong. It's not the greatest stuff, but it's very traditional. There's a lot better natural fiber cordage out there, but I wanted to go cheap for this too. So I'm just, for the sake of doing it, I'm going to play with it. So then I'm going to peel off a bunch of this cordage. Probably way more than I need, but I want to make this easy. And then I'm going to use one of my stakes here as a toggle. Put through there. So then I'm going to run these two down and figure out about where I want to put them. Take one of my spiky stakes. That'll keep things from slipping off here. And pound this into the ground. Then I'm going to take my second stake and so I'm going to put it about where I think it should go. And then a little ways up the line here, I'm going to make a loop. I'm going to go around my stake down here, and let's see, probably something like that. And I'm going to do a trucker's hitch. It doesn't have to be super tight, especially at this point. You want it a little loose to maneuver things around. But you want this adjustable because you're going to be moving things like the tent stake. And like I said, the natural cordage isn't the strongest stuff in the world, and quite frankly, I had that a little tight. So fortunately, I brought extras. So this particular cordage only has like a 22-pound breaking strength, which clearly I exceeded. This wind's picking up. It's going to make it interesting with this light tarp, but half the idea of a tarp is to keep the wind away from you so you stay warm. All right, so let's loosen up our trucker's hitch just a bit here. I'll start this again. Okay, that's more like it. Not too tight. All right, so I can adjust this out a little bit so that we have a little more space. And the other thing that Dave suggested in his video is we take these corners back here. I'm actually going to release my tie-outs on them so that they don't get in the way. And you take these corners and you tuck them in so you've got some canvas to set your gear on. Okay, here it is. The tarp structure using the 9 by 12 canvas drop cloth, some glass beads, some natural fiber twine. Then I have my 5x7 tarp in here, my wool blanket, my sweatshirt as a pillow or tent pole from the wood that's around here, and my tent stakes from wood that's around here, and should be comfortable. The wind is coming broadside the tarp. Typically, I would want to set my tarp structure up so that the wind is coming to the back of it. But in this particular location, I want to be able to see out towards the road and see if anybody's coming in here, see what's going on. And so I pointed it this way. I still get plenty of protection from the wind. It's just not coming straight to the back of the structure, it's coming to the side of it. So time to get a few other things unloaded, and I'm going to go over what I brought in the way of food and what I'm going to do in the way of cooking dinner with what I have and what I brought.
Thank you for watching part 1 of Biker Bushcraft on a Budget. Please stay tuned for part 2.